money back and that it is actually an affordability measure. If the honourable member would actually look at the research done by the University of Calgary, she would know that. But, Mr. Speaker, I think Canadians really need to understand that the Conservative approach to climate change is to let the planet burn. It is to leave an impoverished environment and an impoverished economy for the future of our children. Shame, shame, shame.
The honourable member from Lethbridge.
The contrast could not be more stark when it comes to the Liberals versus the Conservatives and their opposition to the Canadian people.
Once again, colleagues, the chair could not hear the question being asked by the honourable member, and that honourable member is actually close to the chair. The honourable member from Lethbridge, from the top.
It's shameful that my colleagues across the way would clap for a 23% increase in the carbon tax when Canadians are lining up at the food bank in insurmountable numbers. Millions of Canadians cannot afford to put food on their tables, and these folks over here stand and clap.
That's right.
That is shameful. When will they grow?
Go on.
Whoa! You must right?
You can call them to account.
Mr. Speaker.
You can call them to account. You can call them to account.
So time has come awfully close to the end of the honourable member's question. I'd like to reassure the honourable member the chair nor the table had heard a comment that was unparliamentary. So this is why it is very important to all members. Colleagues, it is very important for members to not comment while a member has the floor. The recognized member has the floor. I'm going to ask the honourable member, please, to restrain himself while I try to give an explanation to all members. As I was saying to colleagues, is that it's so important for us to keep our voices down and to restrain ourselves while... I'm going to ask the honourable member once again to please, and ask him, please follow the good example of his whip and restrain himself while this chair is talking. It is so important for colleagues to be quiet so that the chair can hear the question, and if on occasion that members say something that is untoward or unparliamentary, that the chair or the table can hear that comment to making sure that things happen within an appropriate parliamentary tone. The honourable member from New Brunswick Southwest.
You didn't get an answer.
I'm terribly sorry. The honourable member, the honourable minister, to resign. So, again, I'm going to ask all members please restrain. So I'm going to give the honourable member from Lethbridge 10 seconds to put her question left, if she chooses to exercise that, to allow 10 seconds left to ask her question. Would the honourable member from Lethbridge like to have those 10 seconds?
Really?
Mr. Speaker, the minister across the way had something to say to me before. Perhaps they'd say it on the record.
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we agree that the contrast could not be more stark. Could not be more stark, Mr. Speaker, because of the Canada carbon rebate. We are putting money back in the pockets of Canadian, in the honourable member's own province, Mr. Speaker. $1,800 will go back to Canadian and Albertan families because of the Canada carbon rebate, Mr. Speaker. $1,200 for Manitoba.
Just I want to remind members to be very judicious. If they're going to quote from something, but otherwise it could be perceived as a prop. So I'll ask the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to continue. She has 6 seconds left on the clock.
Mr. Speaker, I'll close by saying that the leader of the opposition's climate denial would axe all of the rebates that we are giving.
The Honourable Member from New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, while common sense Conservatives will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crimes, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost, the crime, or the corruption after 8 years. Canadians are paying higher prices because of sky-high taxes. Today in New Brunswick, we pay over almost 60 cents more for gasoline per litre than they do in neighbouring Maine. On April the 1st, the carbon tax is going to go up again, 23%. Will the Liberals axe the carbon tax and give Canadians a break? Yeah. Great job.
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, what do you call someone who says one thing and does the other? You say they are acting hypocritically. Mr. Speaker,
the Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, you would say that they are acting hypocritically. The Conservative Party says they have principles. If you don't like, they have other principles. In their 2021 platform, on which every one of those members of Parliament was elected, the platform said, quote, "We recognize that the most efficient way to reduce our emissions is to use pricing mechanisms." The Conservative position is not only devoid of facts, Mr. Speaker, but their position is the height of hypocrisy. How can Canadians believe anything these folks say?
The Honourable Member from New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, let's remember, these Liberals promised they would never increase the carbon tax by more than $50 a tonne. It's skyrocketing up to $270 a tonne. It's going to go up again on April the 1st. And voters in my district see that every day they cross the line to buy gas in Maine, 50 cents less a litre cheaper. On top of that, they're now collecting the HST and the GST on gasoline and energy prices, another $5 billion. When are these Liberals going to stop punishing Canadians and give Canadians a break?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
My colleague, the Minister of Natural Resources and Energy, just asked this member a question.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
In the category of God forbid, Mr. Speaker, look, this member went around like all of his colleagues. Every single person who has asked a question in question period today went to their constituents' doorsteps with a brochure that says, "Elect us, we will have a price on carbon." How do those members now stand up with a serious face in front of Canadians and say they're not misleading them today?
The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, this government already owed Quebec $470 million for services rendered to asylum seekers. The debt has now climbed to $1 billion. And these aren't projections, these are bills. Spending incurred to guaranteed asylum seekers rapid access to social assistance, temporary housing, health care, and schools. Ottawa's refusal to pay money it owes Quebec sabotages our ability to not only integrate these asylum seekers, but also to serve the entire population. When will this government reimburse Quebecers? The Honourable Minister of Immigration and Refugees. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Like the member knows very well, since 2015, we have paid $5.2 billion to Quebec as part of the arrangement we have with the Quebec government. We're ready to do more. We're ready to help Quebec, to sit down with them. Ideally, we'll do this publicly, but we know we have a good relationship with Quebec, and we are working with public servants to know what our responsibility is and what is that of Quebec. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. A very nice relationship, Mr. Speaker. For months, the minister says he's been at the negotiating table with Quebec, but there isn't one. And the Quebec minister confirmed it on Thursday. The federal government has been wasting our time for 2 years. Fortunately, we know that the premiers are scheduled to meet in coming weeks. The Quebec budget, as a reminder, is due on March 12th, and we're asking for $1 billion here we're talking about. So is the federal government going to announce today that it's reimbursing Quebecers? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Mr. Speaker, you know who's not at the negotiating table, who will never be? The Bloc. It's strange to hear such a statement from the Bloc. We are sitting down with Quebec public servants this Monday, and we are talking. We're in discussions and negotiations. It's important to work on both sides, to know who does what. We're going to sit down with Quebec. We have a nice relationship, and we're going to continue that. The Honourable Member for Lac-Saint-Jean. It's not because you're 6'3" that you're up to the task. The federal government must also share the reception of asylum seekers amongst the provinces. Everyone has to do their share. Last year, the federal government finally started to do this, and yet last time we asked them to start again, the minister accused us of wanting to deport people, which would be a crime against humanity. Were the Liberals guilty of a crime against humanity when they did work last year? Of course not. So why don't they get back to work before Quebec's public services collapse? Before the minister answers, I'd like to remind all members to be careful to make sure that there is no targeted comments to a person. The Honourable Minister of Immigration, that's very kind of the member to say that I'm 6'3", I'm barely 6'1", but the question that Bloc has asked is clear, that they are seeking once again to squabble with the federal government, and they're looking to squabble with the government of Quebec, and they found one. So it's easy to conclude that the Bloc is not looking for relevant answers or reasonable solutions. They're just looking to fight with people. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives, the common sense Conservatives will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop crime. But this Prime Minister, after 8 years, is not worth the cost or the crime or corruption. And the Bloc leader has shown his true colors. Not only does he want to keep this Prime Minister in power for some time, he voted 8 times to spend more money on the corrupt Arrive Scam app. The app, as he knows, was supposed to cost $80,000, and he and the Bloc voted $24 million in additional spending. Does the Prime Minister recognize that he and the Bloc are just not worth the cost? The Honourable Minister of Public Services. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the question, which has already received several answers in the past. If my Conservative colleagues